reminder, but before we get stuck in, we are going to cross live and give you your 6 o'clock news headlines.
Very good evening to you. The top story tonight at 6. Hamas has named the next hostages to be freed in Gaza this weekend, including 3 men. They are Eli Sharabi, Ohad Ben Ami and Or Levy. 18 hostages have so far been released, with Israel freeing 383 Palestinian prisoners in return. By the end of this ceasefire stage, 33 hostages and 1,900 prisoners are expected to be released, though Israel says 8 of its hostages are dead. Meanwhile, Hamas has accused Israel of blocking critical humanitarian aid. That is a claim, though, disputed by the United Nations. News here at home. Meanwhile, the government has confirmed that Grenfell Tower will be dismantled nearly 8 years after a fire killed 72 people. The process will take around 2 years and be done sensitively, with no changes made before June's anniversary of the disaster. The decision follows warnings that the damaged building is deteriorating and only remains stable due to protective measures. Local people and survivors, though, are divided. Some want the tower to remain as a memorial, while others say it's too distressing. Officials have said that key materials will be preserved, though, for a potential memorial if the community wishes. A man who murdered his partner's toddler after staying up late playing video games has been jailed for life today, with a minimum term of 25 years. Christopher Stockton inflicted fatal head injuries on 22-month-old Charlie Roberts at their home last January. The boy's mother, Paula Roberts, admitted neglecting him by failing to seek treatment for the injuries caused and was jailed for 4 years. The judge said Stockton's actions were excruciatingly painful for the young boy, and that only he knew why he had inflicted the fatal blow. Detectives also called it a heartbreaking case and urged people to report concerns about child welfare. In other news, Sir Keir Starmer has been chairing a so-called secret meeting today to tackle investment, reform and growth amid plummeting poll ratings and grim economic forecasts. It comes after the Bank of England slashed its growth forecast, cut interest rates to 4.5% and warned of further drops in living standards. Meanwhile, Donald Trump's tariff threats and global trade turmoil are also being blamed for the uncertainty. Well, meanwhile, a new poll is predicting a 3-way tie at the next general election, with Labour cabinet ministers set to lose their seats and Nigel Farage holding the balance of power. The survey of almost 6,000 people found Reform UK would have 175 seats. That's up from only 5 at the moment. Labour would drop from 412 to 174, and the Tories would gain around 50. Wes Streeting, Yvette Cooper and Angela Rayner would be among those to lose their seats, with a Conservative and Reform coalition the most likely outcome. Well, there is more commuter chaos tonight as Liverpool and Manchester's railway line is shut after a car crashed onto the tracks at Salford earlier. Train services across Northern England and North Wales are facing severe disruption till at least 10 o'clock tonight. Network Rail has said the vehicle has now been removed, though, and damaged overhead lines are in the process of being repaired. Police have arrested a man in his 30s on suspicion of drink driving. Authorities have arrested a second woman accused of using wigs and disguises to fraudulently sit the UK citizenship test for 12 other people. The 42-year-old was detained during a raid in Kent, where officers found multiple wigs and suspected fake documents. Another woman in her 20s was also arrested after allegedly hiding under a bed to evade detection. Authorities say the scam could allow people to unlawfully gain the right to remain in the UK. And both suspects now remain in custody as investigations continue. And ITV has pulled Gino D'Acampo's shows from its schedule this weekend after accusations of inappropriate and intimidating behaviour. Family Fortunes and Secrets of the South have been replaced, with no plans to air a new series filmed last October. ITV says dozens of people accused the chef of aggressive and sexualised language, though he denies the claims, calling them deeply upsetting. The broadcaster says it has strengthened duty of care policies in recent years and called the alleged behaviour, unacceptable. That's the news on GB News. A full roundup at 7 o'clock. Now, though, it's over to Michelle.
Thank Thank you very much for that, and hello, happy Friday to each and every one of you. I'm Michelle Dewberry. This is Dewbs & Co. We're with you till 7 o'clock tonight. My panel, Lord Daniel Moylan, the Tory life peer of the House of Lords, and alongside him I've got James Schneider, the former advisor to Jeremy Corbyn, which is handy because tonight Robert Jenrick has called our Attorney General, Jeremy Corbyn, in a wig. And we'll come on to that story and look at the reasons why a little bit later on in the programme. But for now, hello, gents. You're very, very welcome.
Thank you.
As are each and every single one of you. You know the drill. Get in touch with me all the usual ways. Email me, gbviews@gbnews.com. You can go to Twitter. You can X me there. Or, of course, you can go to the website, gbnews.com/yoursay, and talk to me and each other. And speaking of talking to me, I've had a great many of you sending me quite a distressing video, shall we say, which took place in a hotel today. I want you to know that I absolutely acknowledge that video, and I've been in contact with the police today to try and get to the bottom of what on earth has been going on. So as soon as I've managed to confirm something, worry not, we shall be discussing that story. But look, also imminently about to take place, Donald Trump. He is about to take to the stage, essentially, and issue a press conference. What is going to be in it? I don't know. I mean, people will speculate, but you know what? He's like, anything could happen. So if you're sitting there thinking, what on earth is he about to announce? Worry not. We shall cover it as soon as it begins. But for now, I want to talk to you about carbon capture. We know, of course, the figure of 22 billion, also known as the black hole, which creates a yawn and an eye roll for many people. But that sum of money is also one that we are going to be spending on carbon capture technology. Well, now a report has come out which is warning essentially that this technology, Daniel, it's essentially a huge gamble, unproven technology. It has the potential to, quote, significantly impact our bills. Is this the direction of travel that we should be going in?
Well, just to explain very quickly why this net zero thing requires carbon capture. It is net zero. It isn't a target for eliminating the use of carbon fuels. But if you do use them, you have to be able to offset them to get the effect down to zero. And one of the ways of doing this, they think, is to pull the carbon out of the air, because there's carbon in the air.
Yeah.
Pull the carbon out of the air, capture it. I mean, you have to put vast amounts of air through machines, because the amount of carbon in the air is absolutely tiny. We know the air is oxygen and nitrogen mainly. And then you sequester it by pumping it into the ground somehow.
So you have to use chemicals, though. There's some chemicals along the way that are derived from fossil fuels as well.
You don't get it out of the air just by blowing it across something. You need a chemical process to pull it out of the air as it passes through these huge machines. And nobody knows if this works. It's sort of science fiction. It works in principle. Nobody knows if it works in practice. And we are committing billions of smackaronis to do this, just to achieve this net zero target, which is destroying our economy basically and driving us all mad. And that's what the report today says. But it won't stop Ed. I mean, Ed's got 22 billion to play with on this, or something like this, 22 billion pounds, which will be spent on this, and it's just billions here and billions there, and then they say they haven't got any money.
Do you think, because this is a relatively new technology, do you think it's the place of government funding to be, getting involved with this, or should we be leaving this kind of speculative investment / risk to the private sector?
Well, ideally, we should be leaving it to the private sector if there's actually a demand for it. But the government has decided that they're going to invest in nearly all these things. They're doing the same in battery storage technology and other technologies like sustainable aviation fuel, the more advanced type of sustainable aviation fuel, which the private sector isn't producing, that they want to get into. And they're going to be coming forward with a bill to authorise expenditure on that in the near future, I understand, and so forth. So there is no private sector left in this country in this industrial revolution. It's a sort of Maoist great leap forward driven entirely by government activity.
I've got to say as well, I'll just quote a part of this report. It says the Department of Energy Security and Net Zero hasn't indicated the likely costs of these projects. It essentially goes on to say the Treasury expect that around 75% of the costs are supporting these projects essentially will be met by levies on consumers. Of course, same consumers that are facing significant financial pressures as it is.
Yeah, to pay the bills.
James, your thoughts?
So carbon capture and storage at this stage is basically a bit of a con and a bung to the fossil fuel companies. Of course, we need to rapidly decarbonise. We need to build a new energy infrastructure on an enormous scale immediately. But this technology has never been used at this scale before. It hasn't worked as it's meant to be, as it's predicted to do so, when it's been tried at a lower scale in Norway. And what this is about is to allow fossil fuel companies to say, we can continue extracting fossil fuels because it's being offset by this investment. This is not what Ed Miliband and that department should be investing the money in. They should be investing the money in actual renewable and clean energy. That's what we need, not an untested technology to allow fossil fuels to continue.
But to be fair to Ed, there are some things where you will actually need carbon, even in a carbon-free future. And so you can't just eliminate it entirely. And so he needs an offset if he's going to get to net zero. And this is the madcap driver behind the whole thing.
I'm not sure what you mean by madcap driver. Of course, we need to offset with things, which is why we should be stopping the deforestation in Indonesia, in Brazil.
Well, they're foreign countries. Are you in favour of imperialism?
Of course, I'm not in favour of imperialism, but
isn't that imperial? I mean, if they want, we're going to tell them what to do with their forests, or you are.
Well, in the case of Brazil, for example, I mean, the Brazilian government, very fine government that they have at the moment under President Lula, has greatly reduced the amount of deforestation. But that deforestation is linked to us. It's linked to us here because part of it's to do with the beef that we get from the ranchers there. So the world is connected. That's not saying we must dictate to Indonesia or to Brazil, but we should see how our role in things that happen in other parts of the world is
tiny amounts of Argentinian beef. We have practically no Argentinian beef in this country. I mean, you're making this up.
Brazilian.
Sorry, Brazilian beef.
Brazilian.
Sorry, Brazil. Quite right. You did say Brazil.
Yes. And you're wrong. You're factually wrong. And we can look at the details in the break. But I mean, the amount of
I'm going to go and look for it.
The relationship between agro-industry in Brazil and meat exports, some of which come to Britain, quite a large amount of which, enough to be significant, come to Britain. So, of course, we shouldn't be trashing the carbon sinks, the natural carbon sinks which we have, and we should be planting and growing more forests and more biodiversity. All these things are important. I imagine you're opposed to every single one of them which is supporting, supporting the health of the planet. January was 1.75 degrees above pre-industrial averages. We're being told to wrap up, but I mean, you're not taking this remotely seriously.
Well, hang on, yeah, because I am the one that's telling you to wrap up, but I'll give you an extra minute. Go on then. Are you taking him seriously or not? Are you worried about this temperature increase?
No, I'm not the slightest bit worried about this temperature increase, and I'm not that worried about global warming, which has been going on now for so long that we're hardly seeing anything of it. As a result, I'd expect the world to be in flames by now, generally. In fact, forest fires and things like that have largely gone down. Because we manage them better and we have fewer. I know it's all gone wrong in California, but President Trump seems to be putting that right by sending the water down so they won't have that problem in the future. We can manage these things better if the world is getting a little bit warmer. And I don't believe it's going to come to an end in that dramatic fashion. I think we can deal with these things as they arise. I think what we are doing is taking our entire industrial base. I mean, you said it yourself, we immediately need a totally new energy system in this country. That's what you said.
To invest in. Yes.
To invest in. We immediately need to invest in, when we are investing in it, if you like, spending large amounts of money on it, to replace a perfectly well-functioning energy system with something which is going to do the same job a great deal more expensively. And that's going to fall on people's bills. And everyone is telling them at the same time they're lying to them. and saying your bills are going to go down. They're not. They're going to go up.
Let me ask you a really quick
question. People aren't being told the truth.
Just a quick yes or no answer, because I do have to go to a break. Do you think that there should have been or should be a referendum on this whole net zero and the target and the date assigned to it?
I'm perfectly happy to have votes on everything at any time.
So would you be
whatever.
open to this question about us achieving net zero and all the ramifications that it has for life as we know it going
Sure,
to
I'd be very happy.
Do you think we need a referendum on it?
I don't think we need one, but I'd be perfectly happy to.
I'm actually like James, strangely enough. I too believe there should be a lot more decisions in this country should be supported by a referendum, and that would be one of them.
Yeah, I've got to say, the net zero is not just a little phrase, is it? It's not just a little bit of jingle. It's something that really will affect not just our lives, but your back pocket. And I can't help but notice it does seem to feel like it's just been imposed on each and every single one of us. Maybe you could have a voluntary tax code. So if you're somebody like James, who believes that climate change and all the rest of it is really important, if you're someone that's sitting at home thinking that the world is about to basically set on fire, you could perhaps voluntarily chip in extra tax and ring fence it and send it to net zero. What about that? That's a good idea, isn't it?
The reason why these things generally hit people in the back pockets is the people that are implementing them aren't trying to save people money. You could perfectly easily...
Was that a good idea, then?
You could, which one?
You could have a
No, of course not. No, we shouldn't be... We already have that. People can give money to whatever they want.
Ed has told us that he's going to save £300 off.
Yeah, and it's not true. But the thing is, it could be true if they wanted it to. We could say to the energy companies that we are going to have a lower cap, that we're going to have less on our energy bills. We could just say that. Instead, our political class is willing for us to be ripped off time and time again.
Michelle Dewberry for Prime Minister, I will create a voluntary tax code, and anyone that's terrified about climate change, you can donate more money, ring fence it, just to all of these kind of projects. I'd fix some of these problems in a heartbeat. Look, after the break, I want to talk to you about child criminals. Do we need to change our approach to them? And also worry not, the moment that Donald Trump starts talking, you will be the first to hear it.
This is GB News, Britain's news channel.
Ironic article in The Guardian, Nick, caring about facts.
Yeah, this is Meta is ushering in a world without facts, says Nobel Peace Prize winner. And they just seem to give these Nobel Peace Prizes to anyone these days. So it's Maria Ressa.
Not working.
Zuckerberg came out, and it was very bold. He said a few things. We're going to use community notes instead of fact checkers. Fact checkers in inverted commas, because it just means people pushing usually a specific viewpoint. Community notes seems to be a great system that X uses, so why not do that? I think that's great. He's going to reduce restrictions on topics like immigration and gender. Good, because I'm against censorship. He's going to push back on governments around the world that are going after American companies and pushing to censor more, which is great. He's also moving content moderation to Texas instead of California, which is banter. So now the cynical version is he's just realises we've got a new regime, it's the MAGA era, and I want to be mates with Trump, who said that I should that if I interfere with the 2024 election, he should spend the rest of his life in prison. So he did mention he might be a bit scared of that. He was involved in that in Facebook suppressing the Hunter Biden laptop scandal, and I feel that he didn't like being a part of all that from watching.
And also the suppression of arguments about gender and sex, what is biological sex and whatnot. You get banned for saying there are two sexes.
They're on the wrong side of this, and now he's correcting. But the weird thing is the people, of course, the people who don't like this, the lefties, this person, Ressa, is saying that this is a big problem. That it's an extremely dangerous time. I've seen all this from the lefties. They just call it disinformation. They're worried about this because to them it's disinformation. To other people it's information.
Yeah, and also, I mean, I think we can all agree if people think they're getting their facts just directly from Facebook, then something's horribly wrong. But we know that. The community notes thing, I think, is quite good because that sort of first-hand experience people are putting down, aren't they?
Yeah. People have loads of different views come together, and it's an aggregate. So that's why it works.
GB News, the People's Channel.
I'm Christopher Hope. From pop stars to politicians, I'll interview anybody in a pub who's got a political opinion. Join me every Friday on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, YouTube or gbnews.com, or wherever you get your podcasts. This is GB News, the People's Channel.
We're proud to be GB News, the People's Channel, and as you know, we always love to hear your views. Now, there's a new way of getting in touch with us at gbnews.com/your-say. By commenting, you can be part of a live conversation and join our GB News community. You can even talk to me, Bev Turner, or any of the members of the GB News family.
Headliners on GB News 11 p.m. every night. It's got 3 top comedians going through the next day's newspapers so you don't have to read them, which is great.
That's a good point. He's lying. I mean, maybe he's not lying.
That's Headliners every night from 11 p.m. and 5 a.m. as well on GB News, Britain's news channel.
Hello everyone, Michelle Dewberry, Dewbs and Co, Lord Moylan, James Schneider and myself remain with you till 7 o'clock tonight. We were just talking about net zero. I had a great idea, a voluntary tax code for those people concerned about climate change. But James Schneider said it's even simpler than that. He said, what was your solution?
We need to tax the rich.
Tax the rich.
Hugely more than we do now. And we need to reduce the costs for ordinary people. Billionaires in this country's wealth has more than tripled since 2010. Has yours? No, of course it hasn't.
Right.
The reason why the costs are being handed down to ordinary people while the very rich get hugely, hugely richer is because they own our media and they basically own and control our political system. So, if you want to have cheaper bills, if you want to have more money in your pocket, the thing to do is not get mad.
Billionaires. Is
yes, shake the billionaires. Take some of their assets because they're really ours.
Right. What do you think to this? I mean, tax the rich, and then we've just kind of gone on to this assets. Just respond to this tax the rich thing. Then
All
we'll come
right,
back to
there's
the
this great
point.
fantasy on the left, and not on the extreme left, the Corbynite left, but I mean the left generally, the Resolution Foundation, people like that, that we don't tax wealth enough in this country. You could solve all the problems if you taxed wealth. And the difficulty is that with the exception of houses, nearly all wealth is mobile. And it can leave this country, and it does. So you need to be very, very careful about taxing wealth. The other thing is that if you're going to get, whatever James says, if you're going to get regular, stable income, which is what government needs, you need to have people, you need to tax a lot of people. Taxing a small number of people, you might catch them in 1 year, but they're gone the next year. And you don't get that stable income that government needs because it's mostly, that's the sort of thing, you know, you need tax in, expenditure out every year. And so every time people talk about it, I think it's a great idea, and then when you try and put it into practice, it doesn't actually work. The people you catch are not the billionaires, they've gone. The people you catch are people who've got expensive houses, which they might not have paid for. I mean, they're expensive houses they might have moved into 30 years ago, and which have become expensive. They're not inherently rich, it's just their house has turned out to be expensive. And they don't have the cash to pay the bills that are being demanded of them. But if you talk about taxing the billionaires, you know, nationalise people's property. James was saying off-air, I made the point off-air that a man like Rupert Murdoch, because James had mentioned media barons, Murdoch isn't a British subject. He doesn't live in Britain. He's never lived in Britain. He lives abroad. So James said, well, take his assets that are here with his company that's here. Yes, you can do that, but then you can probably take that. If you took it, quite apart from the effect it would have on other investors and people trying to you know, investing in this country. Quite apart from that, you can take it once. You can take it this year. What do you take next year? What do you take the year after that? It's all gone.
Are you jealous of rich people?
No, not at all. I can see that the system that we live under is making ordinary people, year after year after year, worse off, and it is making people who have absolutely everything they could ever possibly want have more and more and more capacity every year. That is an absurd system. It's an absurd system to have people...
You're talking about capitalism. So you want to see the end of capitalism and an introduction of socialism.
Sure, but there are different levels beneath that. When we had social democratic capitalism, it was better than the version that we have now, where ordinary people are getting worse off year on year. Most people at home, right? Think back to your parents' generation. If you're my age, say, how much of their home did they own when they were your age? The answer is almost certainly more than you own. We are more in debt, we have less money, we have less time, we are more stressed. And the beneficiaries of that are at the other end of the spectrum. So yes, if my answer is we should be taking back some of that money because we could have a more balanced system, the answer is yes, unashamedly so.
Do we need socialism in this country, Lord Moylan? Is that what
You're asking a Conservative peer whether we need socialism?
Yeah, I am.
We've got more than enough socialism, and we've had quite enough socialism, actually, from the last Conservative government, let alone the supercharged sort of socialism we're getting from the current Labour government. The amount of money that the government is spending, and this is partly...
Spending money is not socialism.
Partly due to COVID. Well, the amount of...
Spending money isn't socialism.
The amount of the economy that the government is controlling, which is fundamentally what I was trying to say, and I'm happy to rephrase it, the amount of the economy the government is controlling has risen dramatically over the last few years. Now, some of that was to do with COVID, I grant you, but there's been no attempt to reverse it.
We don't control the banks.
We're just
we don't control the energy companies. We don't control the water companies.
Exactly what we say.
We don't control anything. We are left high and dry and ripped off every single month.
It might surprise you to learn that I am not a billionaire. But if I was a billionaire, quite frankly, that had made my fortune from taking risks, from entrepreneurial endeavour, from perhaps losing a few quid on the way, I would sit there, I'd put my feet up and think, do you know what, I do more than enough, quite frankly, to subsidise a great number of people, things and services in this country already. It'd be a massively net contributor, not a net taker. And I would tell people to
they're
get
almost all
stuff
net takers.
if they was trying to take money off me.
Almost
I can
all
tell you
net
that
takers.
for free.
We pay them our rent, we pay them our mortgages, we pay them interest, we pay them interest, we pay them interest. I'm sorry, the richest people in our society are not net contributors. They are taking money from the overwhelming majority of us who go out and actually do the work.
Wow.
The wealth creators are not the people with 8 zeros in their bank account number, or however many zeros in the bank account. They're ordinary people who go out and do the work.
Next, you'll be telling me that you shouldn't even have such a thing as a billionaire.
Yeah, there shouldn't be billionaires.
God.
Absolutely, of course there shouldn't be billionaires. In a society where children growing up in poverty, it is a moral abomination that there are billionaires.
At what point?
A moral abomination.
At what point do you start having an issue and becoming jealous? Because I do think it's
not.
jealousy.
Of course, it's not jealousy.
So at what point
I pity them. I pity Elon Musk.
At what point does your jealousy kick in?
It's not jealousy.
Is it when someone is an entrepreneur, they invest their...
No, it's not jealousy. I'm sorry. If you follow any moral code, any established moral code that isn't the worship of money...
At what point does your jealousy kick in? Is it when they earn their first million, their 5th million, their 10 million? What point does your jealousy kick in? Because I'm guessing it's not the billion point.
I don't have a jealousy.
I bet you do.
No,
it seems to me like you do.
I don't, because if I did, I would go and earn a lot of money.
But how can you say
which I'm not trying to do, am I?
Well, I'm not trying to earn loads of money. You're trying to take someone else's money that they've gone off and earned.
Not for myself, am I?
Honestly.
I want to take from the rich to give to us all. Now,
it's a good job I'm not a billionaire.
I would say once you have £10 million, you should the wealth tax on your assets should be moderate.
Yeah,
because you've already got quite enough money.
And do you know what I would say to you if you ran the world? I'd say, in fact, I know what I'd say, but I can't say it on television. I'd basically say no, and that's me putting it politely, and I'd pick up my stuff and I would relocate my little self to the likes of Dubai or anywhere like that where it was a much, much lower, fairer tax regime.
Be unpatriotic, be anti-people, be anti-people, be unpatriotic, and all of your assets that are here that you don't want, someone else can buy, someone else can have, and you can pay an exit tax on the way out.
Well, which world would you like to live in?
One in which people have more stuff. Most people have more stuff, more money at the end of the month, and we aren't paying so much out to the people who don't do anything. They just sit on massive assets. Do you think that these huge pools of capital, BlackRock, Blackstone, etc., they're actually doing anything?
No, but
are they actually doing anything to improve the productive capacities for all of us? No, they're not.
When you say about people sitting on assets, let's just take the example, and I want to bring you back in because now you've set me off.
No, I'm just astonished. We've got, this 1950s
No, because
socialism.
I could rant about this issue all
1950s improved people's lives much more in this country than the last decade. It's not jealousy.
Well,
if it were jealousy, I would be like them trying to earn loads of money.
No,
I'm not. It's not jealousy.
No, because you don't want to earn your own money. You want to take.
No, because I'm not taking it. I'm not taking it from them into my pocket, am I?
Well,
I'm saying no. I'm not.
For all of us, you'd get your share.
For all of us.
You'd get your share.
Yeah, for all of us, so that we can have childcare so that people can raise healthy children, so we can have smaller class sizes, so we can have better transport, so we can look after old people with dignity. Yes, all of these things. Yes, I want to have everybody in the country to have that. Everybody should have a decent life. Everyone is of worth equal value. We should have dignity for all.
The top 1% of taxpayers and the top 10% of taxpayers in this country pay astronomical sums into the tax coffers of this country. They already fund disproportionately the things that you referenced.
Because we have a system where they have all the money. I would like them to pay a lower percentage. I would love the top 1% or the top 10% to pay a lower percentage, because we've gone through a process where the ownership of wealth and the distribution of income and power in this country is much more even.
When you say we've got a system that gives them all the wealth, are you talking about the fact that we have people that live in a free society that are able to make their own career choices and choose the paths on which they place themselves?
So I do not think that, for example, the Bank of England giving out hundreds of billions of pounds in quantitative easing to inflate asset prices, that means that people who hold assets, and Daniel knows this is true, who hold assets get their assets inflated in price. I assume they go up in price. Have they done anything? No. The Bank of England has intervened in such a way as to put more money on their asset value. This is unfair, yes, of course, but it is also bad for a dynamic economy, because it means that investment goes towards the hoarding of assets rather than the creation of new productive things. And I think, yes, we should tax productive investment less, and any unproductive asset hoarding should be taxed much more, of course.
Oh, I want Dewberry Tavern to open. Honestly, I could open Dewberry Tavern and sit here and debate this stuff all night long. You guys will have very strong opinions. What do you agree with? Very different opinions. Yours very welcome. Get in touch and tell me. Donald Trump, he's not started talking yet. Worry not. We'll talk about knife crime as well after the break. I'll see you in 2.
Ready to soak up that holiday sunshine?
Won't we need some cover?
No worries. All sorted.
All Clear Travel Insurance sponsors GB News Travel Destinations Forecast.
A wet start to this weekend in Mallorca, but the rain should be clearing from the Balearics by Sunday. Plenty of showers to come across Italy. Lots of fine and sunny weather over the Greek islands. A bit of a chilly breeze, though, blowing here across Turkey and Cyprus. Some wet weather, as I said, across Italy and the south of France, looking pretty soggy. That rain clearing away from the Balearics. Plenty of sunshine across the Canaries. That should last through the weekend into the early part of next week. Sunny on Sunday in Barcelona.
All Clear Travel Insurance sponsors GB News Travel Destinations Forecast.
Hello there, good evening. Welcome to your GB News weather update from the Met Office. Heading towards the weekend, still plenty of cloudy skies, also some showers and a little bit of hill snow, and it's still going to be remaining chilly in those brisk easterly winds. That's all thanks to an area of high pressure across Scandinavia, bringing us this brisk easterly flow. So it is going to be feeling chilly in the winds, and it is dragging in some cloud, also some rain and some showers across the southeast, pushing up into Wales and central parts of the UK. And this is likely to bring some snow across the hills of Wales, perhaps even the Pennines later in the morning. But a slightly different story to the northwest, clearer and drier here, likely to see some frost during the first part of the morning. Now, for the beginning of the weekend across the south, it could be quite a damp start for some, with some showers, these merging into longer spells of rain, particularly across parts of East Anglia and the southeast. So quite a murky start to the day, perhaps a few clearer spells across Cornwall. And similar across Wales, northern parts of England, quite a cloudy start, but clearer to the northwest of Ireland, northwestern parts of Scotland. But here, that's where we're going to see the frost. And we will start to see some showers just edging their way into eastern parts of Scotland too. Once again, we could see some winteriness to these showers, particularly across high ground and the hills of Scotland. And that's pretty much the setup for the rest of the day. Still a fair amount of cloud around. It could be quite drizzly at times. Still a chance we could see some flurries of snow across high ground in Wales, parts of the Pennines, and the best of the brightness once again to the far northwest of the country. But for all, it is still going to be feeling like a chilly day, particularly in exposed spots in those brisk winds. For the second half of the weekend, once again, plenty of cloud around, but the best of the brightness still across northern parts of Scotland, perhaps less so across parts of Wales. For many, it's going to be a cloudy day, some drizzle at times, and still a very small chance we could see some winteriness across the hills. And that cloud sticks around for the beginning of next week too, and that means temperatures are going to struggle, so still feeling rather chilly. Bye-bye.
The latest GB News travel.
Good evening, I'm Johnny Ratner. Big problems continue in the outskirts of Liverpool, east of the city centre through Stanley. The A57 remains closed on the Prescott Road at the scene of an accident, and the A60 is closed heading out of Nottingham city centre, so southbound obviously at the Cattle Market Road junction at the scene of a two-vehicle collision. There are long queues back along Queen's Road and Lower Parliament Street as you divert. Heading out of Essex into Kent, there are long queues on the clockwise M25. There was a collision at Dartford earlier on. It's still queuing back into Essex to the A127, despite the fact all lanes have been reopened. And the M4 is partly blocked westbound, just northwest of Swansea, at junction 48 at Hendy following an accident. And staying in Wales, at Powys to the northwest of Talgarth, the A470 is closed at Llanfilo following an accident. And that's the latest.
You can stay up to date throughout the day by visiting our website, gbnews.com.
Hello there, Michelle Dewberry, Daniel Moylan and James Schneider remain alongside you till 7. There's a lot of people agreeing with you,
Of course
James
there are.
Schneider.
Of course there are.
Lots of people are saying that we shouldn't have billionaires.
Most people are very sensible.
I know, but if you, let's not, don't set me off again. I think you heard my views in that last topic. But look, when it comes to knife crime in this country, the amount of children now involved in this it's just absolutely devastating and eye-watering. An 11-year-old has just been charged with a double stabbing in Manchester. And it really kind of makes me just stop and think when you hear that. 11, that's a child that's either still at primary school or literally just about began secondary school. These ages are so devastating. And it's got me thinking, do you think that we need to change our approach a little bit? So I'm not talking about the 11-year-old, I'm talking about children more generally. Because, of course, we have anonymity in this country. The responsibility for the child's criminal behaviour is of the child itself. Do we need to kind of rethink some of those two things?
Yeah, well, I think the first one I've never agreed with. I've never agreed with an anonymous justice. I think the demands of justice to be a public process, so you know the name of the accused, even if it's a child, is a very, very strong demand. And I've never actually agreed with the idea that when it was introduced, I remember when it was introduced, the idea was that the child might make a mistake, little mistake, and they should be given the chance to rebuild their career and their life, and it shouldn't be held against them for the rest of their life that they committed a crime when they were 11 or 12 or 13 or whatever the age might be. And that was a nice idea, but I'm afraid the consequence is not very helpful. I think we should know the names of young people who commit crimes. Sometimes they're tried and acquitted, and that allows them to clear their name. On other occasions, we should know who they are.
So would you name them before they've even been found guilty?
No, I think, well, that's a very good question, and I'm open to two views. I can see two views on that. But certainly after they've been charged, after they've been convicted, I think they should be named. But I actually think this should be an open process. The trial should be an open process.
Do you?
I do.
Interesting. James, did you agree with that?
If they're acquitted, they've cleared their name.
True.
Nothing to be embarrassed about.
So I don't think that whether you fall down on either side of that is going to remotely move the needle on the problem that we have with young kids with knives. So I want to get away from that entirely and try to focus on things which will do something. And I don't think locking up parents either is going to do the job.
No, but that's my question to you. Do you think that child criminals should have anonymity? That's my question.
I don't think that removing that is going to do anything. So unless I'm shown that it's going to do anything, no, I don't think that should change. But there are things that can be done that are not being done. I mean, if you strip away all of youth services and youth centres, which is what's happened over the last 15 years, if there are fewer places for young people to go, if there are fewer clubs and activities, if there are fewer jobs for people to go to afterwards, if there's no community policing or limited community policing, if there isn't accountability for the police and a strong connection between a community and the police, then these things are much more likely to happen. And of course, there are other things you can do to stop people getting access to knives. But I think what we're looking at here is a torn social fabric, which is through the policies that this country has suffered the last 15 years. And it's going to take a long time to, and unfortunately, money and love and care to repair some of that.
What do you think to that, what James is saying? Because we do hear this a lot, don't we? And I don't mean to be rude, but all the time that I hear people say your starting point was about removing like youth services and youth clubs and all the rest of it, I think it's a little bit, it makes me eye roll, because I almost feel like if you are not entertained as a child, if you are struggling financially as a child, that doesn't then give you carte blanche.
Of course it doesn't.
Let me
but Michelle,
pick up my mum's kitchen knife.
but Michelle, we're talking. There's a question of aggregate and then the individual. Obviously, each individual that picks up a knife and goes and does something is to blame for that thing, and they should not do that. And this is not excusing that. But we're talking on the aggregate.
Where's parental responsibility then?
Parents, of course, have a responsibility to be good parents always. But what I'm talking about here is on the aggregate, and this is where policy is meant to be. Policy is meant to look at the aggregate and say, how can we reduce this overall? And the things I'm talking about are things to reduce overall. They're not saying, therefore, if someone does go and pick up a 11-year-old goes and stabs someone, that's fine. Of course it isn't, and it's not excusing that. But if we want to reduce the number that happens, we need policies which have been proven by international studies in our own country that are likely to reduce crime amongst kids, and violent crime, scary crime.
Yeah, and just to be clear, I'm not saying that 11-year-old has stabbed someone. Obviously, they've been arrested in connection with the stabbing. Yeah. But this notion then that actually it's just failure all around and, you know, a bit of boredom, policy failure and all the rest of it that's to blame, is that true?
I don't really accept that. I think there's been a tremendous cultural shift in the country towards violent crime, particularly towards knife crime, which is then exacerbated and multiplied by the fact that people feel they're entitled to. Young people feel they're entitled to carry knives in order, they say, to protect themselves from knife crime, which, of course, in itself only leads to a spiral, because a knife you carry for defence can very often end up being used aggressively, or even if it's not, if it's used defensively, you can still kill somebody with it. Mm-hmm. And so I think that culture has got home. And I don't think, you know, a bit more, a few more snooker tables or whatever is going to change all of that. I think they would carry on taking the knives to the youth centres if they could. I think there's a lot to be said for knife gates. There's a lot to be said for trying to take knives off people. And so on. And I think we need to take that sort of approach until we can achieve some sort of cultural shift. And I don't think youth clubs are the means necessarily for doing that. I have some sympathy with what James says about the way in which we police these things, and with a greater connection with community and so forth. But I don't. I think the police have lost the plot to some extent on subjects like this, but on so many other things as well. But I don't think that, we're going to address this problem by having more youth clubs.
Well, there you go. I said earlier on, a lot of people agreed with James. I can tell you now, there's an awful lot of people that completely disagree with James. Richard says, can you just tell James, and don't respond, James, because I want to go to my break and open Dewberry Tavern. But Richard says, can you tell James is advocating a race to the bottom to make everyone poorer? It's millionaires, billionaires, wealthy entrepreneurs that drive our economy. Benefit claimants and skivers, says Richard, do not. You guys can debate that amongst yourself. Coming up after the break, Donald Trump, another executive order. I'll have the details of that in 2.
GB News Breakfast, every day from 6 a.m.
Well, you know I like an auction.
Yeah.
And I've bought some strange things at auction before you have as well, haven't you, Eamon?
Yeah, well, Ellie would throw this in the bin that you're coming up with now.
How about this? Admiral Lord Nelson's hair. Nice. Cut. I mean, is this a bit spooky? Cut as he lay dying during the Battle of Trafalgar, so someone's gone, oh, we'll just have a little bit of that there. In 1805, is on sale in Jersey, and it's a little cup, how much would you pay for the hair?
No, nothing. It would go in the bin, straight in the bin.
What, even? What? That's very disrespectful to the British culture and heritage.
I think it's disrespectful that he lay there dying and someone thought, we'll take a quick strip
maybe they just had, maybe they thought, you know, because there's obviously the famous painting, isn't there, of the Battle of Trafalgar. Maybe they thought, we'll give him a quick haircut, and then they kept their £15,000. 15 grand.
Where's the hair come from? What part of the body?
His head, Eamon.
Well, it could be his underarm. I don't know. You know, it depends.
Let me have a little look.
You would bid
very
more.
curly. I think it's his head. It's his head. What?
You would bid more for his head than, say, his underarm.
Well, I think so, yeah, I would hope so, yeah.
Or anywhere else.
I would hope so. A little less whiffy there, the head hair. And there it is. And it's in a little pot.
No.
And the only way you can probably find out is if you DNA test it, I guess. It's definitely his.
Whoever pays for that is bonkers.
Well,
that's creepy.
I was seriously tempted to make a bid for a toupee, not for me, but as worn by John Wayne.
John Wayne's wig?
Yeah.
Why?
Wow.
Why?
Well, why I didn't get it was my wife said to me, that is not coming into the...
Well, she's right. She's right.
GB News, the People's Channel.
Good Afternoon Britain isn't just about us. The wonderful thing about this programme is it's about everyone watching. It's an interactive programme.
Well, there absolutely is something to see here, and we're going to be talking about it more. Whether it's breaking royal news, Will, please bring us up to date. Or indeed a particularly punchy speech in the House of Commons.
Very, very curious.
We bring it to you live, and then we bring you live reaction as well.
That's Good Afternoon Britain, weekdays from midday.
Only on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
Mornings don't have to be tiresome, especially if you have the right company.
Wake up to news as it happens, opinion and debate, and of course, a little bit of entertainment too.
Because when the kettle's on, we're on.
That's Breakfast on GB News, a show worth waking up for.
Every morning from 6 a.m.
Only on the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
We'll spread the news, you spread the word.
Hello there, Michelle Dewberry, Dewbs and Kirtle 7, Lord Moylan, James Schneider remain alongside me. Look, it's Friday, so cheers to each and every single one of you. My favourite part of the week, quite frankly, Dewberry Tavern is open. Cheers, Daniel. What are you doing? What are you looking so
for my
confused
paper
about?
straw.
He's looking for... See, he's ruined my hilarious gag now. Hang on a second. I haven't done my cheers. There you go. See, he's messed it all up. Right, Daniel, there you go.
No,
There's the straw. You can have one as well.
No, not for me. They take all the moisture out of your tongue.
Yes, sir, you've all ruined my hilarious little gag now, but what I was going to do is I've got indeed my straw. Anyone that uses these paper straws will know how annoying they are. Why are they annoying? Because literally within seconds, these things melt, crush. They're so annoying. Well, anyway, look, get out. Because Donald Trump, one of his newest executive orders, he is going to roll back Biden's push now to move towards, remember he wanted paper straws instead of the plastic ones. Donald Trump's having none of that. He says in capital letters, back to plastic. Donald Trump, cheers. Cheers.
Well, where are the plastics?
Why not metal?
Well, yes.
Why not metal?
Well,
in Cuba, they have metal straws. They're lovely.
You lot are all ruining my segment.
Yeah, but
Where's
then you have to carry the metal straw with you everywhere you go. They're not
or they have them in the bar and they get washed.
I couldn't.
And they're much nicer to drink. These are horrible.
What is really
and plastic ends up in the ocean.
No, but James, what is really interesting, you have to admit, is that with all the technology that and the money, the 22 billion smackaroons.
Yes, we can't.
We're spending on technology to capture carbon out of the air.
Yeah, we can't come up with a decent version of this.
We can't manufacture a decent version of a paper straw.
Well, there you go.
That's the
you
thing
don't need to worry anyway, because Donald Trump's sorting it all out.
Yeah, but,
He's
we haven't done that. He's not in charge in this country.
Well,
we're stuck with the paper straws.
It'll trickle through. It'll trickle through.
But Michael Gove brought these in.
I know. Well, I did write an article just before the last election accusing Michael Gove of being a Bolshevik. And we all love Michael Gove, great man in many ways, But
I must say
I think he'd abandoned
conservatism
conservatism by the time it got to the end of the last Parliament. He's better off editing The Spectator.
Well, anyway, look, Elon Musk, he tweeted out, and it made me laugh. He said, I love real Donald Trump as much as a straight man can love another man. It really made me laugh. Anyway, so there you go. So
why? What's funny about it?
What made me laugh about that? Because I love the bromance between Elon Musk and Donald Trump. I think the pair of them.
When's it going to end?
I think the pair of them are absolutely fabulous. I would give anything to have an equivalent of Donald Trump get a hold of this country, shake it, and move it in the direction of travel that Trump is taking America. I think if we had somebody a fraction of the ability, mindset, energy, optimism, achievement of Elon Musk and Donald Trump, this country would be transformed. So when I see that, it makes me smile. I want to crawl into my Twitter and give them a massive kiss. Does that answer your question?
Yes, OK.
Good, thank you.
Yeah.
Right.
Michelle Dewberry, I want to crawl into Twitter and give Elon Musk a massive kiss.
I would.
Brilliant.
You won't see me again for about a week, I can tell you. Look, I do want to very, very quickly play you a clip from Robert Jenrick. Take a listen to this.
Lord Hermer, Starmer has brought back Jeremy Corbyn in a barrister's wig. We've learnt that he celebrates Just Stop Oil, wants us to pay reparations, criticises border controls and wants to boycott Israel. His far-left views are a threat to national security. He should be...
I mean, right, let me...
He's such a dingbat, this guy.
Who? Why?
Jenrick.
Why is it?
You can't possibly take that seriously. I mean, even if you hugely, you support... empire and colonialism and the genocide of other people and the destruction of Palestine and the destruction of the planet through fossil fuels, whatever, even if you're on board with all of that stuff, surely that's rubbish. Surely that's really the worst possible presentation of it, this sort of ignorant stuff from him.
Well, in case you're not following, you're not really sure what's going on, so the Attorney General, Lord Hermer, he, among other things, he has called the British Empire, I quote, deeply racist. He reckons that all children should be taught about that legacy of violence. He's also fought for things like reparations and so on. Where are you on our Attorney General and the comments that Jenrick just made?
Well, the Attorney General is meant to be the government's chief legal advisor, and he is a politician. He's allowed to be political. He doesn't have to be. But he's meant to be mainly a lawyer because he's meant to give independent legal advice. And this one is a bad one, I'm afraid. I don't think Hermer can last. And the worrying thing about him is, of course, that he's part of a clique of lawyers, which includes Starmer, and indeed this man, Sands, who's been the chief advisor to Mauritius. They hate the British Empire. They hate Britain's achievements in the past. They're completely tied up. And, he says, it's the cab rank principle. A barrister has to represent his clients. But how is it they always end up with left-wing clients? That's what I want to know, arguing left-wing cases. And I think that they discredit... Hermer has exposed, through his comments, the attitudes that Starmer shares, and it discredits...
I wish he did share, to be honest, because the three things that Michelle read out there are absolutely correct. Of course, the British Empire was racist. Wait, hold on, Daniel. You spoke historically.
We've only got a minute, so
basic facts. The British Empire genocided whole groups of people and wiped them out. That is racist. He says that children should learn history. Of course, we should learn history. And the payout to the Mau Mau, that was for rape, torture, castration of colonial subjects in Kenya. So of course those things are right.
Right, very brief final response.
Well, I think this every time James comes out with extreme left-wing opinions, he starts by saying these are basic facts.
They are basic facts.
They are.
Anybody who's read any book.
Over him, it's his synopsis. Go on.
The fact is that these people actually hate Britain and its culture and its history, and they're running the government, and we need to get them out.
Nonsense.
Well, there you go. He says it's nonsense. He says it's not. You guys can spend your weekend thinking all about it and just pack it in talking over me. You guys at home can decide who it is that you agree with. I can tell you, so many of you are now getting in touch about the straws. See, whatever you think about Donald Trump, he always gets you talking. There's not a lot of love for plastic straws. Many of you are getting in touch saying, what about the wildlife, Michelle? Please, please, please. You don't want us to follow suit. John says he's going to become an entrepreneur. He's going to invent an edible straw. One of my other viewers has said to me, I used to live in Italy in the 60s and all the straws were made out of straw. Right, OK. Listen, that's all I've got time for. Have a great weekend. See you Monday night.
We'll see a cold snap, which will quickly develop into a warm front. Boxed boiler repairs, sponsors of weather on GB News.
Hello there, good evening. Welcome to your GB News weather update from the Met Office. Heading towards the weekend, still plenty of cloudy skies, also some showers and a little bit of hill snow, and it's still going to be remaining chilly in those brisk easterly winds. That's all thanks to an area of high pressure across Scandinavia, bringing us this brisk easterly flow. So it is going to be feeling chilly in the winds, and it is dragging in some cloud, also some rain and some showers across the southeast, pushing up into Wales and central parts of the UK. And this likely to bring some snow across the hills of Wales, perhaps even the Pennines later in the morning. But a slightly different story to the northwest, clearer and drier here, likely to see some frost during the first part of the morning. Now, for the beginning of the weekend across the south, it could be quite a damp start for some, with some showers, these merging into longer spells of rain, particularly across parts of East Anglia and the southeast. So quite a murky start to the day, perhaps a few clearer spells across Cornwall. And similar across Wales, northern parts of England, quite a cloudy start, but clearer to the northwest of Ireland, northwestern parts of Scotland. But here, that's where we're going to see the frost. And we will start to see some showers just edging their way into eastern parts of Scotland too. Once again, we could see some winteriness to these showers, particularly across high ground and the hills of Scotland. And that's pretty much the setup for the rest of the day. Still a fair amount of cloud around. It could be quite drizzly at times. Still a chance we could see some flurries of snow across high ground in Wales, parts of the Pennines, and the best of the brightness once again to the far northwest of the country. But for all, it is still going to be feeling like a chilly day, particularly in exposed spots in those brisk winds. For the second half of the weekend, once again, plenty of cloud around, but the best of the brightness still across northern parts of Scotland, perhaps less so across parts of Wales. For many, it's going to be a cloudy day, some drizzle at times, and still a very small chance we could see some winteriness across the hills. And that cloud sticks around for the beginning of next week too, and that means temperatures are going to struggle, so still feeling